Good evening, everyone. We're here tonight to speak a little bit about the new rules and regulations and reliefs that are provided following the passage of the OBBBA bill and how to manage your student loans now, given that information, and into the future. My name is Pauline Smith. I am an EdCap counselor and program manager with BLPCNY. This presentation is being given on September 25th, 2025, and all rules and regulations that we are discussing are as of that date and may change going forward. So you might want to just confirm that there has been no changes before you rely upon any information provided herein. Our agenda tonight is going to be a little bit focused heavily on the OBBBA and how that is impacting student loans. We're going to talk a lot about those updates. We're going to delve a little bit about into some of the ways for tackling your student debt given those changes. We're going to talk a little bit about the usual repayment options, income-driven repayment forgiveness, public service loan forgiveness, TPD, delinquency and default, and collections. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about how to contact our program if you need assistance with your student loans and how to go about managing your student loans going forward. So a little bit about BLPCNY. We're a nonprofit legal aid organization that provides free legal information, advice, and representation in civil legal matters to Central New Yorkers. We are also a provider of student loan assistance services through the EdCap network. The EdCap network actually services all of New York, doesn't just focus in Central New York. We also have no income limitations, so any New Yorker can actually apply to us for assistance. What we can assist you with doing is we can help you determine your best student loan repayment options. We can help you access loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge programs, apply for consolidations, deferments, and forbearances, resolve issues with servicers and lenders, get out of default. This is a big thing right now. People need to get out of default so that they can avoid any sort of wage garnishments, Social Security offsets, and tax intercepts. We're really heavily focused on that now that the federal government is going to be moving forward with certain kinds of garnishments that have been on hold recently after the COVID pandemic. All right, so the big thing we've come here to talk about tonight together is OBBBA, the new tax and spending cut bill. This bill has a lot of different working parts, but the part we're really thinking about tonight is the changes that are being made to the student loan system, which are set to be implemented over the next 1 to 3 years. Some of these changes are going to change how much borrowers can borrow, how that amount can be repaid, how and when income-driven repayment forgiveness is available. There's going to be elimination some short-term relief programs that came before and after the COVID pandemic. The one thing this bill really doesn't do is alter public service loan forgiveness in any real way. But there's also negotiated rulemaking going on, separate from this OBBBA, that could limit employer eligibility in the future, and it could actually impact PSLF significantly. So when and if that does occur, we will move forward with contacting folks and letting them know about these changes. So what do the changes look like? Well, as we know, the SAVE plan is ending. And what does that mean? Well, Biden put the SAVE plan into effect to try to give people some loan forgiveness. Immediately upon it being put into place, there were legal challenges. Those legal challenges have been moving around through the court system since that time. What has it done? It has left a lot of people kind of in a limbo. They've been in a forbearance for several years. It's currently scheduled to end on 10/31/2025, but it could be extended. The downside of this is that forbearance time doesn't count towards loan forgiveness. So if a borrower is collecting time towards PSLF, teacher loan forgiveness, any of the income-driven repayment, it doesn't count. So, people really have to start thinking about how long we're going to wait in that save forbearance, given if they are looking towards getting forgiveness. Interest in the save forbearance used to be 0%. However, on August 1st of 2025, it started accruing again. So people have to think about whether they want to continue letting that interest accrue or if they want to get back into repayment. As of right now, about 7.7 million borrowers are still in the SAVE program. That is a huge number of people who have to change their enrollment coming up pretty quickly. And so you might want to think about getting out of that program while you still can, because there's going to be a huge number of applications to be processed if it really does end on 10/31/25, and it's going to create some chaos at the Department of Education, where we've lost a lot of employees and there are very few folks left to process these changes. So what do you do? What do you do if you're on the SAVE plan? Well, the first, you have one option. One option, which is you can stay on the SAVE plan. If you haven't made payments and you're not ready to make payments, you can stay in the SAVE forbearance until it ends. Just keep watching the news. I'm sure there will be a lot of stories about when the SAVE forbearance is going to end. Your other option is to switch plans. You can switch IDR plans at studentaid.gov anytime between now and when the SAVE forbearance ends. For right now, the EdCap program is recommending that most borrowers enroll in an IBR plan, but for some borrowers, that's not the best plan. So you can go to studentaid.gov/IDR, run the IDR application, which gives you real-time information on what you're going to pay under each of the different programs. If you decide, based on running that calculator, that you want to submit your plan change immediately, you can go ahead and click submit. However, don't click submit unless you actually want to change your plan. Once you click that submit button, you cannot go back. So, just as a caveat, that is the case. If you run the calculator and you see there's no great option for you, don't click the submit button right now. Another warning is once the SAVE forbearance ends, if you don't choose a plan, you might be placed automatically into the standard fixed plan, which is for a lot of people is not financially feasible. But at that time, you can decide whether or not you want to move forward with certifying for an IBR plan. But there might be some delays at that time. All right. So there is going to be a lot of changes to the future of student loans. That just is the case right now, given all the changes in the OBBBA. There is going to be a significant impact for most people. The first thing that's really going to change are the borrowing limits. For undergrads, there are no changes. It's the same amount of direct subsidized, unsubsidized loan as we've had to date. But for graduate students, for those pursuing master's degrees, there's going to be a $20,500 annual limit on how much they can borrow. Previously it was you could borrow up to the cost of attendance. Well, now it's going to be $20,500 annual, and there's a lifetime limit of $100,000. That's it, $100,000. For professional degrees, law school, medical school, there's a $50,000 annual limit and a lifetime limit of up to $200,000. Previously, there was no limit to either of those either. So what that's going to do is it's going to make the cost of medical school or law school unattainable for some people who want to attend one or the other. Graduate Plus loans. A lot of people attending graduate school rely on these. Well, unfortunately, they're going to be phased out starting July 1st of 2026. If you have already taken your first Graduate Plus loan before July 1st, 2026, you can continue borrowing Graduate Plus loans for up to 3 years to complete your current degree. But if you don't already have a Graduate Plus loan before that time, these loans are not going to be available to you at that point. Parent Plus loans. Parent Plus loans previously have been a lifeline for a lot of parents whose children were attending very costly schools. There were no limits. Parents could borrow up to the cost of attendance for all of their children. And unfortunately for some parents, that meant that they incurred a huge balance on which they then had to pay back. Well, from now on, the federal government is actually going to be limiting how much people can take out in Parent Plus loans to $65,000 per child. That is a lifetime limit. That includes undergraduate and graduate. If parents don't usually take out loans for graduate students, but it is a lifetime limit of $65,000 per child. It does include both parents. So if a father and a mother or two parents want to do, split up the loans, unfortunately, it still limits to $65,000 per child. There's an annual limit of $20,000 as well. Um, if you have received a Parent Plus loan before July 1st of 2026, you can continue borrowing under the current rules up to the cost of attendance for up to 3 years to support a dependent student's program of study. But that's the end of it. After 3 years after July 1st, 2026, those loans are going to be going away permanently. So what does that mean? Well, if you're no longer borrowing for your education or your child's education, you can really not, you're not being going to be affected by any of these changes. You could focus on selecting a good repayment plan for your situation. IBR, PAYE, ICR are going to be available until July 1st, 2028, and there are other programs that are going to be available after that time. If you're pursuing PSLF, make sure you're earning credit. We'll talk later about that, but um, this isn't really going to impact you. But if you're currently in school and you're still borrowing, if you received a graduate or Parent Plus loan before July 1st, 2026, you can continue borrowing under the current rules for up to 3 more years to complete your program. But, um, if you haven't received one prior to that date, you are limited. Um, After July 1st of 2026, if you start school after that time, as an undergrad or a graduate student, borrowing options are going to be more limited. Some loan types will no longer be available and new caps will apply. You have to plan ahead to understand your expected costs and what federal aid will cover. Really, we encourage people to consider exploring alternative funding options like scholarships, state aid. But if you're a parent planning to borrow for a child's education, Parent Plus borrowing rules are going to be the most significantly impacted by the OBBBA. So we really, those are really, you really should focus on talking to your student's financial aid office and looking at where your student might be able to get alternate funding. Okay, so let's say that people have already taken out loans or they're going to take out loans after July 1st of 2026. You only are going to have two options. You're going to have a standard fixed repayment. That's going to range from 10 to 25 years based on the size of the debt. Or you're going to have the RAP program, the Repayment Assistance Program, which is kind of, is based on the adjusted gross income, and it determines which percentage of the person's income is going to be used based on that adjusted gross income. There are reductions in payments for dependents. So if someone claims a dependent, you get a $50 reduction for each dependent. Minimum payments are going to be $10. There's no more $0 repayment minimum payment. This is one of the pluses of the OBBBA. If your payment doesn't cover interest and reduce your principal by $50 a month, the government will pay up to $50 to reduce your principal. So that actually is a helpful thing. Your spousal income can still be excluded when filing separately. That was something that was lobbied for when this bill was drafted. There's no protected income and no adjustment for inflation. But also, unpaid interest will not accrue. So if you are making payments and your interest plus that $50 a month isn't actually touching the amount of, of reducing your amount owed, you're not going to start accruing additional interest. So your loan balance is not going to swell hugely like has happened a lot in the past. You're not going to take out a $3,000 loan and then 20 years later it's $40,000 because of interest and charges and things like that. But the downside to that is that their forgiveness doesn't happen until 30 years uh, after 30 years of payments. So 30 years of payments, you're eligible for forgiveness based on that repayment. You are, however, still eligible for PSLF. This is a program that qualifies for PSLF, and you can still, 10 years of repayment under the WRAP program, you can apply for PSLF. So if you're an existing student loan borrower and your loans have all been dispersed before July 1st of 2026, what does this mean for you? Well, what it means is that until July 1st of 2028, you can still access the Pay As You Earn program, the Income Contingent Repayment program, and the Income-Based Repayment program until July 1st of 2028. And the rules on those aren't changing until after that. But after July 1st of 2028, there's going to be something called the modified version of the IBR. It doesn't have an income test, but it is going to have some different percentages of your income that are, the calculations are based, your payment calculations are based upon depending on when you first took out loans. If you took out a loan that was dispersed before July 1st of 2014, you're going to be paying any other loans back after that date at 15% of your discretionary income. Balances are forgiven after 25 years. If you took out your first loan after July 1st of 2014, payments will be calculated at 10% of your discretionary income, and after 20 years of qualifying payments, you will be eligible for forgiveness. These borrowers can also choose the WRAP plan or the new standard version or new standard plan, but they can still pick this modified IBR plan. The complication here is you have to know, loans dispersed prior to this date, loans dispersed after this date. They might have kind of a mishmash of both, and we'll have to figure out which qualifies for however much in repayment after however many years and how much forgiveness you're eligible for. This can be very complicated, so you can absolutely reach out to an EdCap counselor for advice on how to pursue that program. For anyone who takes out new student loans after July 1st, 2026 and hasn't had loans prior to that time, they only can have access to the standard program or the repayment assistance program based on their income. They will not have access to these modified IBR plans at all. Okay, so existing Parent Plus borrowers who had their loans dispersed before July 1st of 2026, this is urgent and crucial. You have to consolidate your loans before July 1st of 2026 into a direct student loan, Parent Plus loan. You then have to enroll in the ICR plan and make at least one payment before transitioning to IBR. This is still kind of in flux how that's going to work, but this is our current guidance. You have to consolidate, enroll in an ICR plan, and make one payment and then transition to an IBR plan. After July 1st of 2028, that loan is then going to be transitioned to one of the modified IBR plans if you're not already enrolled. You can't access the WRAP plan or anything like that. You can be transitioned into that modified IBR plan, but only if your loans were all dispersed prior to July 1st of 2026. If your first loans were dispersed on or after July 1st of 2026, your loans can only be repaid in the standard repayment plan, even if it's consolidated. Parent Plus borrowers have no access to WRAP and will have no path to income-driven repayment, parent or public service loan forgiveness. If existing Parent Plus borrowers take out more Parent Plus loans after July 1st of 2026, they have to pay all their loans back in the standard repayment plan. So that is just a little caveat. If you currently have Parent Plus loans and you do not want to repay under the standard repayment plan, or you are thinking that you might have access to the parent to some sort of PSLF, you might want to consider other options for taking out loans other than Parent Plus loans going forward after July 1st of 2026. So what does the new RAP and IBR plan look like? Well, for some people, it's actually going to be a positive. For someone making $60,000 who has, has a family size of two, one dependent, their adjusted gross income percentage for the RAP payment program payment is going to be 5%. So their RAP program payment would only be $200 a month, which is actually lower than they would have paid under the modified IBR or with the 10% or the modified IBR with a 15% payment. So that this would actually be a bonus for them. This would be a lower payment. If you look at someone making about $150,000 though, it's going to be a 10% adjusted gross income. They're going to be paying $1,200 versus $974 they would have been paying under either the modified IBRs. So, that is a pretty significant increase in the amount they're going to be paying per month. And if you remember, that is over 30 years instead of over like 20 or 25 years in the IBR plan. So it's actually going to be a significant amount more over the course of the loan. So for current borrowers whose loans were dispersed before July 1st of 2026, this is kind of a wrap up. As of right now in 2025, student borrowers have access to standard plans, IBR, payee, and ICR. As of July 1st of 2026, they're still going to have access to the standard plan. They can have IBR or the RAP program. If they're already enrolled in payee or ICR, they can continue with payee and ICR until July 1st of 2028. As of July 1st of 2028, student borrowers are going to have access to a standard plan, an IBR and RAP plan. The payee and ICR are going to go away. There's going to be a new modified IBR, a RAP, or a standard plan available at that time. We don't have 100% certainty of what that modified IBR is going to look like, but we'll know more going forward. Parent Plus borrowers, they're going to have significant changes. As of right now, you can enroll in a standard plan, an ICR if their loans are consolidated, in an IBR if they're consolidated later this year. As of next July 1st, they're going to have access to a standard plan and an ICR and IBR only if they're consolidated before that July 1st, 2026. And that means the consolidation is completed by that point and they're enrolled in a payment plan. After that point, they're going to be available, they're going to be eligible for the standard plan. On July 1st of 2028, they're going to have the standard plan or some form of IBR if consolidated before 7/1/26 and enrolled in an IDR plan by 7/1/28. If someone takes out a new loan on or after July 1st, 2026, you have to pay all your loans back in the same repayment plan. That means if you have both student and Parent Plus loans, that is an exception. But if you have, student loans, graduate and undergraduate, you have to pick one plan and repay them all in the same repayment plan. If you have parent loans and Parent Plus loans and student loans together, you can pick two separate plans because the RAP program is not going to be available for Parent Plus borrowers. All right, so future borrowers after July 1st of 2026, what's that going to look like for them? Well, student borrowers have either the standard plan or the RAP plan. Parent Plus borrowers have the standard plan, and that is it. There is no path forward towards forgiveness for Parent Plus borrowers after that point. There's a few other changes. Loans dispersed on or after July 1st, 2027, they're not going to be eligible for any economic hardship or unemployment deferments, and they can only be in forbearance for 9 months during any 24-month period. So that is a significant reduction in the amount of forbearance, especially without those economic hardship or unemployment deferments. Um, but if you have a defaulted loan, you're going to have two cracks, two opportunities to rehabilitate that loan, um, versus the one chance that you've had previously. So that is actually a positive. Borrower defense to repayment and closed school discharges are no longer going to be available. They're going to be, there were some rules that were going to be pushed forward to make those an easier option. Those are being delayed for 10 years because of some court challenges that are happening. So what does this mean for you as a student loan borrower or a Parent Plus borrower? Well, what it means is a couple of things. Um, you got to pick a strategy for how to repay your student loans. There's three options, really. You could pay your debt in full as quick as possible. You could pay the minimum amount required and pursue forgiveness. Or you can, the third option, which we don't talk a lot about, which is to pay your minimum amount required until death. Um, the first one, which is pay your debt in full as quick as possible, that one is really geared towards people who have low balances but a high income. If you have a low balance but a high income, that is a beautiful option. You can then go ahead and try to repay your loans as quickly as possible. Um, if you have the option of making lump sum payments, if you have the option of paying more than the required amount, regardless of the repayment plan, this is a good option for you. But if, like most people, you don't have a high income or you have a high balance compared to your income, you might want to look into one of the forgiveness programs like public service loan forgiveness, teacher loan forgiveness. There are a couple other more specialized loan forgiveness programs in states. Um, and the goal there is going to be to minimize your payment until you become eligible for forgiveness. Um, if you are looking towards income driven repayment and you have loans before 2026, before July 1st of 2026, you can take advantage of some of the payee ICR, IBR plans that currently exist. If you're going to take out loans after July 1st, 2026, the only option you're going to have is going to be that standard or the WRAP plan. The third strategy is really one that works for people who are older borrowers who can't realistically pay the balances that they owe or achieve forgiveness. And what they really want to do is just manage that debt until they pass away. The nice thing is about student loans is they are dischargeable upon death, and they do not pass on to the heirs of someone. So it is one option for folks who are older. There are some discharge programs that for people who are disabled or people who are experiencing certain kinds of injuries and things like that. And that might be something you might want to talk about to a counselor about. It's not a strategy, but it's an option if those things happen. So what are the pros and cons of these repayments? Really, the pros of the traditional repayment are as you would imagine. You have the same payment every month. It's predictable. You don't have to verify your income. It's the same no matter what your income. So if you're making $1,000,000 or $10,000 a year, the payment amount is the same. Um, and it's a faster way to pay off your loans. The cons, it's a higher monthly payment. There's no forgiveness, and you really can't flex your payments up and down based upon your income. What are those plans called? They're called standard plans. Currently, there's something called the extended and the graduated plans. Those are kind of getting phased out, though. Right now, really what we call that is the standard plan. Income-driven repayment plans are, they're really affordable payments based on someone's income. The pro is that you have the eligibility for some form of forgiveness through most of them. If you have a high debt balance and a low or moderate income, or you're pursuing PSLF, teacher loan forgiveness, one of the other specialized loan forgiveness programs. This is your best suited plan. Um, and the other thing is that they are affordable for more people than standard plans. What are the downsides? Well, you have to renew it every year. You have to certify your income every year. There could be some interest accumulation. So if you're pursuing PSLF or teacher loan forgiveness and then you stop pursuing that, that interest accumulation could kind of snowball on you. Although under the OBBBA, that might not be the case anymore. It is currently the case. Um, Longer repayment periods extend your time to become debt free. So if you're looking to take out a mortgage or something like that, it's going to take a lot longer time to have that debt paid down towards qualifying for that mortgage. What are those plans called? They're income-based plans, they're pay-as-you-earn plans, income contingent plans, things like that. Um, you know, there was something previously called the IDR account adjustment, which is was a Biden era plan to give people a lot of credit towards income-driven repayment forgiveness. But what happened is when the current administration came in, they actually took the tracker off of studentaid.gov. If you want to access that tracker, you still can access it by going through a back door using this link that we put on this slide here for you. You can actually click on that link or copy and paste that link, and you get a text version of your qualifying payment account, which then you can copy and paste to a Word document and just save it somewhere. We encourage everyone to do that as often as possible and save it so that you know what your eligible payment counts are, going into whatever new forgiveness programs the administration is going to bring out. You want to have that data on hand so you know where you are. If you are at year 25 on on an income-driven repayment plan, we want to know that before we do things like consolidate your loans, which will impact that. We want to know that before we do anything to bring you out of if you're in default or anything like that. We want to preserve that credit as much as humanly possible. To preserve it, we need to know how much you have accumulated. So go ahead and actually, get that data, save it somewhere, and keep it saved. All right, PSLF. PSLF is still continuing forward as is for right now. Um, you know, for current current people who already have a plan that they're working, you can use any of the IDR plans or the 10-year fixed repayment plan if you're alternating between the two. You have to work 30 hours a week as usual, and you have to work for a qualifying employer. Your payments don't have to be consecutive, and all you have to do is meet the employment requirements at the time you submit the application for forgiveness. Um, Forgiven balances aren't taxable at the federal or state level in New York. So that is, PSLF has not so far had many changes other than, the fact that the RAP program would be the new repayment program that most people would use after the 1st of next July. So there was a PSLF buyback period, and it is still an option for people whereby you can file for PSLF credit for months that for one reason or another you didn't make a qualifying payment. There is an application for PSLF reconsideration on your studentaid.gov account. You can't purchase back months before you got consolidated a loan while you were in deferment for being in school for grace periods or default periods. But um, you can apply for that. There is a long backlog of applications that are currently being processed. And so unfortunately, that means that it's going to take a while for these buyback um, applications to be processed and for you to know whether or not that time qualifies. So if you are working towards PSLF, do not rely upon buyback and stop, change jobs or anything like that. Continue to accumulate your credits as you can. Right now, you can continue the usual process of verifying your employment. There has been some discussions following negotiated rulemaking about which employers are going to be eligible for PSLF, but for right now, there have been no changes. So continuing to certify as usual once a year at least with the PSLF help tool is a must if you are pursuing public service loan forgiveness. All right, so what is our strategies? Well, we are either trying to repair our loans in full or pursuing some form of income-driven repayment forgiveness. Um, right now, um, we're still working with the IBR, payee, and ICR plans. Continuing forward, we're going to have the eligibility for the WRAP plan as well. Um, there's going to be qualifying credits for IDRF that were earned in state pay and ICR were going to be transferred to the new IBR plan eventually. Okay, so what is your repayment strategy? Well, we really have to think about, if you're looking for public service loan forgiveness, um, keep going, submit buyback applications if you're eligible. Um, if you want to do the WRAP plan, it could be cheaper for some people than existing repayment plans, but it's probably not going to be available till July of 2026, and it's not clear right now that you can switch back and forth between IBR and WRAP. So if you go into WRAP, you might be stuck in WRAP going forward. Um, if you for some reason are not pursuing PSLF, remember WRAP program has a 30-year path of forgiveness versus 20 or 25 under either the IBR 10 or 15%. So your payment might be lower, but you have to pay for longer. So it's a choice. Okay, so Parent Plus borrowers. This is really where we have to make a immediate decision. You have to consolidate before July 1st of 2026, enroll in an IDR plan by July 1st of 2028 to retain access to IDR options. Recent guidance indicates borrowers must enroll in ICR first, make a payment, and then transition to a modified IBR plan. If you take out any Parent Plus loans after July 1st of 2026, you don't have any access to WRAP or modified IBR plans, and you cannot get any IDR or public service loan forgiveness. So if you haven't already done so, please, if you're a Parent Plus borrower, begin the consolidation or IDR enrollment process. But you have to take out additional loans for the fall or spring 2026 semesters. Consolidate immediately upon receiving those loans. If you have defaulted Parent Plus loans, now is the time to consolidate to get them out of default and enroll them in an IDR plan. And if you plan on taking out additional Parent Plus loans on or after July 1st, 2026, you will have to pay all those back in standard plans. Be strategic about your borrowing. You might want to take private loans to complete your Parent Plus borrowing if you're pursuing PSLF. All right, so TPD, still an option. TPD is still an option. TPD has been kind of changed to being managed by the Department of Education. Applications are available on the studentaid.gov website under the loan forgiveness tab. Um, if you requesting electronic signatures, the link for that is still not working. So what you want to do is use the online application, download the form, give it to your clients to have their doctor sign, or yourself to have your doctor sign, and then you can scan it back into the portal on studentaid.gov and have it submitted. What you don't want to do at this point is um, fax or mail it in, because right now there is not a lot of accountability for those faxed or mailed applications. All right, so delinquent applications, delinquent loans, you want to get those into repayment as soon as possible and get them out of delinquency, because the federal government is going to be moving forward with collection on those loans fairly quickly. So, there's going to be some tax refund intercepts, Social Security offsets, and administrative waive garnishments. There are two ways to get out of default: consolidation and rehabilitation. They have their pluses and minuses. This would be something that would be a really good idea to consult with an EdCap consultant or advocate on, to figure out which is the best option for you given your particular situation. All right, so I'm going to give you some links here. These links are the things that we think might be helpful for you if you are currently enrolled, or if you currently have a student loan, or if you have questions about your student loans. So if you have any questions about these links, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Pauline. This is my direct phone number for our student loan helpline. This is my email, and that's our website for you to go ahead and apply. You can feel free to text me at that helpline number as well if you need assistance. If there's anyone on who has any questions, they can feel free to ask those questions now. Um, Thank you very much for